Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good after midnight, whatever time you're watching this video. Welcome to another episode of Greg Blends, and in today's episode, we've hit the magic number. That's right, I have 4,096 subscribers. Now, most people would probably have celebrated at 4,000, but I've been patiently waiting to get to 4,096 because I'm nerdy and I like the powers of 2. So, if we get a calculator here, and we do 2 times 2, we get 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512. I'm sure anybody who's familiar with computers is familiar with all these numbers. They're the powers of 2. Then we get to 1,024, which was like my first big milestone. I was happy to have hit 1,024. And then my previous celebration video was at 2,048. And of course, today we're celebrating 4,096. I think these milestones are a little bit more fun than the regular, 1K, 5K, 10K milestones that other YouTubers might celebrate. And our next milestone will be 8,192. And then I'll probably celebrate 10K just cuz, but then also we would go to 16,384. Of course, if we divide by 2 a couple times, we get back to 4,096, and that is 12 zeros in binary. So it is a perfectly round number, like we think of as 10 or 100 or 1,000 to be a round number because it's 1 followed by a number of zeros. If in decimal we do 4096, we can see in binary it is 12 zeros followed by a 1. So we just rolled over to the next number in binary. And so today we are going to celebrate by looking at some of my ancient projects. These are some of the oldest projects that I have still saved from Blender because I never delete anything. I also have some ancient renders as well. So we're going to have fun with that. I have my Blender 2.37 fired up and ready to go in case I need to use older Blender. But most of these projects we'll probably take a look at in newer Blender just to see how they open. But some of them we might try in older Blender. Another thing I'd like to mention is this is my first video where I have NVIDIA RTX voice working. So I'm recording in New York City, and in the East Coast, it gets really hot during the summer, but even more, it gets humid, and the humidity kills. So I have my AC running and my desk fan running, and my room is nice and cool, but typically I've been recording with the AC off. So my room turns into a sauna while I record YouTube videos, but I don't want the noise in the background. This is going to be the first video with RTX on. And of course, you guys have been killing it with the comments. Here's a few select highlight comments. Make sure to comment below, and you may be featured in a future video. But without further ado, let's jump in and start looking at some of my ancient projects. So let's just jump into the first one. Now, I'm not actually going to open this scene, but I have some renders here. So what I was trying to do was make a short cartoon, and yeah, it's pretty bad. I was like trying to make like a little action scene where like he locks a door and then it blows off and like the building starts collapsing and stuff. And yeah, I'm not even gonna look at any more of those because they're all absolutely terrible. Balls. Okay. So this was part of a game that I was writing. I'm both an engineer as well as 3D modeler, and I was making a mini-golf game in high school using like C++ and OpenGL. And so I needed, you could see right there, there's a ball. And so I was like learning how to program 3D graphics. It looks terrible, but these were for the golf balls. What else we got in this folder? So this is actually an interesting thing. So these are executables for Windows Pocket PC. And I want to cover this, and so I'm going to plug my Fundraiser now. Basically, there were these devices that were pre-smartphone, and I actually had one in high school because I'm super geeky like that. But they ran a version of, wow, I can't look at any of these images, please. They actually ran a version of Windows called Windows Pocket or Windows Mobile. They were called Pocket PCs, and Blender was actually made for this operating system. And back in high school, I remember running Blender for a Pocket PC. Of course, I don't have a Pocket PC anymore, and they're a little bit pricey. They're, I don't know, about 50 bucks on eBay. And then there's a keyboard that you can get to go with it And I really want to cover Blender for Pocket PC. And you know me, I'm a I'm a sucker for torture using old versions of Blender. So I do want to try to make something with Pocket PC Blender. Of course, I'm not completely crazy. I do want a keyboard because Blender is all about its keyboard shortcuts, so I would need a keyboard. So this fundraiser, I'll put the link in the description, is basically to get both these items off of eBay. And, you know, some people have said, like, hey, you should start a fundraiser to get a SGI Indie machine so that you could play with iRix, which I'm thinking about doing, but that's a lot more expensive. iRix machine's like around $600. And, you know, this is a new channel. I figured I'd rather get a iPaq, which you guys haven't seen yet, and do something with mobile Blender instead of just get a physical iRix machine and cover Blender 1.0 some more. I've already done a lot of Blender 1.0 videos. I will do more, but I also want to kind of move on to other topics. So I was thinking, instead of a $600 fundraiser for an iRix machine, I'd much rather get a Pocket PC so I could show you an ultra rare Blender mobile. Now, I did try emulating this and it did not work. So I tried a couple different emulators, couldn't get it to work. It needs to be on an iPaq. And I did get this to work back in the day, in like 2003 or so. I did get this to work on there. So the link will be in the description. You don't have to donate, but if you want to see that review, that's a possibility for the future. So yeah, I still have my download. Let's see, 2001, 2002. I still have my download from 2002 for running Blender on a Pocket PC. Now, C3PO was a download. You can see it's from a .tar. I didn't make this, so we're going to skip it. Now, CarnieVille. So this was like one of my first projects that I wanted to do for making a game. And if you're familiar with, like, you know, Roller Coaster Tycoon, that's not what I wanted. You know, so these graphics, even though it was a 2D game, they were definitely like 3D rendered in an isometric view. And I wanted to do something like this with a carnival. So, not CarnieVille, CarnieVille. So I wanted to make a game about setting up carnivals. And so this is a zipper ride that I made. So if you're familiar with this ride at a carnival, it kind of like this big boom arm spins around. These cars actually go on a track like a chainsaw around the boom arm, and then each car can also individually flip. It's an insane ride. Like, it would have been enough just to have the cars stationary and like spin the boom arm, but not only does the boom arm spin, but the cars are on a track and they slide along its edge. Absolutely insane ride. I remember going to an amusement park and my friend was like, we got to go on the zipper. I'm like, no, that looks stupid and terrifying. But peer pressure always wins, and I rode it and it was actually really fun. So the first ride, that I decided to model was a zipper. And I was super proud of this model back in the day. So let's try to clean it up a bit here. For some reason now, if somebody in the comments can tell me why this happens, but for some reason when I open up old Blender projects, it shows the wireframe on everything. Now, I could go into whatever this is and like, so wireframe isn't even on. I could turn it on and then I could turn it off, but everything still stays there. Turning it on doesn't fix it. So the only way I figured out how to do it is to select an object, select everything, tab into edit mode, tab out, and then those lines go away. I'm not sure what that's about, but in these days I hadn't quite figured out smooth shading yet, so let's just shade smooth on everything. And then now we can go in, and another problem I had was I wasn't good at normals yet. So let's go in and, well, let's select everything and turn on auto smooth. But you can see right here, this is completely messed up because of course you have to select everything, Alt N, recalculate outside, and then that looks a little bit better now. Auto smooth. I'm just going to turn on auto smooth on pretty much everything. And there we go. There is my zipper ride. Some of this, let's check out the wireframe. I don't know what was going on here. That was a very strange shape for a cone. I had figured out subdivision surface at this point, but I wasn't very good at it yet. Looks like this needs an auto smooth. Overall, I was really proud of this model, and looking back, I like how I had like the hydraulic hoses for the the hydraulic cylinder. I remember that took forever to do, but I'm glad I did it because it looks pretty cool today. Save this. Let's see. There's so much auto smooth. I'm probably going to fast forward this part of the video, but there we go. So let's look at material preview. That actually looks pretty rad. Of course, it doesn't. This part looks super basic and not realistic, but these carriages on this giant boom arm, I think it looks pretty cool. I would actually kind of want to do a tutorial with like my, so it's been like 15-20 years since I did that. I would actually like to do this as a modern tutorial. I think that would be fun to revisit an old project and then do side by side with how I used to think and model versus what I could do today. But yeah, so we got to move on because I have a lot of stuff in this folder and I don't want this video to take forever. But what else do we have? Clips and textures. So this was something else I downloaded. So it's not my work, so I'm not going to show it. Now this is a, let's see. I had a friend in high school who loved Toyota Cressidas, and god damn, look at that camera work. What was I doing? Not only does the car look pretty crappy, but I like how the camera just like, yep, right there. Yeah, I didn't really know how to do animation for the longest time. I think I didn't realize that there was animation curves, so I would just put keyframes and then wonder why shit went crazy. It took me a while to realize that there was the curve editor. I think that's what's going on here, but goddamn, this is nauseating. But anyway, so there's this guy who was obsessed with Toyota Cressidas in my high school. Oh, the camera's a little bit slower this time. Oh, it's still a little bit drunk though. So let's take a look at this model file and see how terrible it is. So I have to select everything, edit mode. There we go. Let's material preview. Oh, I see what I was doing. I was like going along the car's body like horizontally, but my keyframes are like, oh, it's so nauseating. I'm curious what this actually looks like on the graph editor. I guess what, the camera? Look at those curves. Why is this there? Why does it do that? Oh no. I mean, overall, cars are really difficult to do, so I'm surprised I was able to actually get this far. Let's select everything and recalculate our normals. That's going to be a common theme. I have really broken normals in like 90% of this old stuff, but I mean, wow, this looks terrible. But, for a beginner modeler who, and one thing to keep in mind is a lot of this stuff is absolutely hideous, but back in those days, the internet didn't really have like tutorials. There was no YouTube. This was like at least 3 or 4 years before YouTube even existed. And even once YouTube existed, there was very few quality tutorials. This is like a decade before tutorials really became a thing. There were some text tutorials, which we will get into a little bit later. But, so I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just like, messing around. So because I'm so, mature and everything, I did this scene of a fish taco. Now I have this renders folder, and we'll look at each of these renders as they come up. But here is the final thing, and I'm not going to explain the joke if you don't get it. But yeah, this is pretty cringe in retrospect. But I am happy with the some of the modeling work here. I really started to figure out how to do subsurface. Like, so for example, this ramekin, which of course you can see we need to recalculate the normals. That actually looks pretty cool. Like the wireframe doesn't look terrible. If we go into the edit mode, like the mesh isn't unreasonable. And then, it has those nice little indents. That looks pretty much like a porcelain ramekin you might find at a restaurant. Now this salt and pepper should go there. And then, of course, I have to select everything, recalculate normals outside. So here's our taco shell. Let's hide that. Look at, oh my, that is an ugly looking fish. I guess my thought process was, it's going to be covered up by the taco shell, right? So I only really tried to make a fish face, which also looks hideous. But yeah, so I was starting to figure out, subdivision surface, figuring out how to make more complex meshes with this one, and this is what that render came out like. Which, again, this was before cycles. This was in Blender internal, so like the glass looked pretty terrible and stuff, and the chrome looked pretty terrible. But for an ancient render, I'm actually pretty. look at the lettuce. It's just like a picture of lettuce on top of an awkward shaped, plane. Instead of a leaf, I just put a picture of lettuce. Oops, just close that. All right, what do we have next? We're already like 16 minutes into this or something like that, so we got to go faster. Flea Market. Now, there's a picture of my dad, but I don't think I ended up using that texture. Let's open this up. So my father often used to sell at the flea market. So let's fix the wireframe issue, fix the normals issue. All right. So I think, I don't know, it was like his birthday or something, and I thought, I'm going to 3D render your booth at the flea market. Now, I do have this rendered, so that's what this looked like. It looks so hideous. That is pretty bad, but it's kind of funny. Like, so, okay, like this teapot, some of the stuff, like, but this one in particular, can anybody recognize what this one's supposed to be? Let's go look at it in Blender. So if we select this, let's select everything, shade smooth. This is a very specific thing that was on my dad's table in the photograph, and that is. So there you go. My dad was selling at the flea market at some point in time this Wile E. Coyote cookie jar. I didn't really have a good eye for details back then because you can see his ears are going down behind his head, but in mine, his ears are going up. And also, this looks pretty interesting. We'll leave it at that. But all right, so how's the modeling look? I mean, this is all pretty basic subsurf modeling. Now, why can't I fix the normals on this? What's going on here? Do I have to like remove doubles? No. What is artifacting here? So it. Okay, I don't know what I did to make this look so hideous, but yeah, something weird going on there. But yeah, so next scene, what else do we got? Fuck up 1. I just realized I should probably be censoring that title. Okay, so this is one of the first things that I was ever proud of in Blender. Let me see if we can fix the wireframe, fix our normals. Now, this was a scene where I rendered a Coke bottle, a paperweight, and a fountain pen, and some, like you're writing a letter or something. And so that render looks like this. Apparently I called it, oh my. Now this paperweight, you might say, well, what is that? It's like some weird alien hand thing going on. But that was actually a Zellique art glass paperweight, and they would put these like fish with these like swirly glass blobs in the background. And my family had a few of these. I think I even got one for a birthday at one point or something like that. And so I was trying to recreate one of these, and I've always kind of been the type of person to challenge myself. So like I always take on like really complicated, stupid, difficult things. And so that's why I chose one of these, because I was like, well, if I could render that, I could render anything. And so, yeah, there it is. here is, I don't know what the difference between these are, and then here's like a zoom in shot. I guess this is before I added the Coke bottle. So that's what this is. I guess if I hide this, you'll see there's the fish scene, which, you know, isn't terrible for a beginner. The thing I'm most proud about here, however, is the fountain pen. So let's see if we can select all this stuff. Going to wireframe is probably easier to... Don't want this. All right, let's go into material preview. There we go. So this, I'm actually pretty happy with this geometry. I mean, for an ancient project of mine, like, I definitely had figured out how to do subsurface, make things look nice and rounded. Although, is this might actually, yeah, no, this isn't even subsurface. I figured out smooth shading at the time. Now, here is something that I would critique my modern self. There's no way this would fit in that hole. So that is pretty unrealistic. But I guess from the camera angle, you can't really tell, so it's okay. But yeah, this pin cap would definitely not fit on there. But anyways, so that is my scene there. GT, what is this? GT web stuff. So there's a parabolic disc. What's going on here? What else? Oh, so there's in 2.8 it hides the old layers. So let's turn these on. What? There's no names on anything. You know, I'll be honest, I have no idea what this is. I have no idea. All right, next thing. Mike's Blazer. So I did my friend's Toyota Cressida, and I think I was going to start my friend's Chevy Blazer, and I never got around to it. It's just an empty plane. Minigolf. Now, this was slightly different. I mentioned that there was this Minigolf game that I had worked on, and this was in full 3D graphics with, you know, OpenGL and stuff. You could play. I had a weather system, and you could play Minigolf with a tornado. Because that's, you know, there's a tornado. Let's go out for a round of Minigolf. But this was actually, I really liked the Minigolf concept. So this, I was trying to make like a 2D game, but with rendered sprites. And so here we have a beautiful looking pirate ship. Let's just fix normals on everything, like we have to do for literally every model. Probably should put on auto smooth for this one, and probably should smooth this one at auto smooth. Yeah, it's pretty okay. Let's take a look. Look at that beautiful pirate ship, like a pro. There we go. Let's put it in some water, just using the background. Look at that. That's amazing. It's a pirate ship. Yes, that was going to be a render. Do I have a render in here? I do, apparently. What does this look like? It's a golf ball. It's also a golf ball. I guess I did like a spinning golf ball rotation or something. Yeah. So that's that movie. Now this is kind of interesting. So we had in senior year, I want to say, maybe it's junior year, I don't know. We had a thing where it was like an econ simulation, and we had to design a food court for a fictional high school, and every business that could be in the food court had like cost benefit analysis and opportunity costs and, you know, stuff like that. And like, basically we were role playing, trying to do debate and economics and projections and forecasts of like how these businesses will do. We had to like do a pretend survey of the students to see what their tastes were. And so what I did is we had two options. We could either present in front of the class or we could make a video. And so my teammates and I chose to make a video because we could rehearse and, you know, make it perfect. And I was like, well, if we're making a video, I'm going to use 3D animation. So let's make sure all our normals are okay. Shade smooth on this. Material preview, and let's look. So here is a 3D model of a high school food court, and these are all the stalls. Now the textures aren't working. I'm not going to bother to go and fix all the textures, but I will show you renders of it complete. But yeah, so this was supposed to be like a high school cafeteria, and I did this like CGI animation. Now this was like 2003 or 2004, and you know, nobody was doing CGI at home in those days. So when the teacher saw this, it was like an instant A, but also it was kind of like a what the fuck moment. Like, kids are doing 3D animations now, because everyone else's video was just like, a PowerPoint, presentation or something. I was like doing 3D graphics and stuff. So mine really stood out. Actually, I don't know if we got any. I think we probably just like leaned too heavily into the CGI and probably half-assed the actual economic study. But let's take a look at what we got here. Render. Okay, so that is... Now, here's what I'm going to do. I have a bunch of different of these clips. So if you're listening to this right now, I'm going to play the assembled render, if I can find it. Overlaying my voice, because I don't think I have a full... Oh, well, this one's pretty good. Yeah, I don't think I have a full render of everything stuck together. But this is actually... No, this one's pretty good. Let's look at this. So the fictional school, their mascot was the Wildcats. So I put a banner up there. And then here is our restaurants we chose. So we chose Sally's Soups and Salads, Benny's Burgers, The Pizza Place, Taco Villa, and Bubba's Steak, it looks like. So I made these little fictional booths with, fictional Photoshop signs and some soda machines and stuff to represent what the food court in our fictional high school would look like. And this was top quality CGI for high schools in 2004. Absolutely hilarious. What else do we have? Okay, so we get some close-up of those shots of those shops. I like how for the pizza place, I put a brick oven in there. They all have little cashiers. Oh, Taco Villa has churros. Look at that. Churros and like some grilled beef on the grill back there. Bubba's Steak, it just has a bunch of slabs of steaks in a Mountain Dew machine. Mountain Dew and Sierra Mist machines. Wow. Yeah, this was 2003. Oh yeah, there's Hunan Wok with like some Chinese food in the background or something. Oh wait, no, that got replaced. Right? So Hunan Wok, and then in this one, it was Bubba's Steak. So I guess at some point we decided, you know what? We're not going to do the steak place. We're going to do Hunan Wok or whatever. Interesting. So yeah, there's that. What else we got? New folder. More Blender for iPaq. Pingy. Oh, 4 walk with animation. Let's look at my early animation skills. It's probably awful. All right, that is one very shiny penguin. Let's do all that fixing stuff. Make him a little bit lighter. And maybe not so... There we go. All right. Walk. Just 2 frames. I was hoping for something a little bit more, but... There we go. Look at that pro level walk cycle. Literally peaked right here. Wow. Wow, so this video is taking a while. So I think I might save some of these for next time, but we will look at all the renders once I'm done, but we might look at the rest of the stuff later. So here is a game that we wanted to make. It was going to be like Resident Evil. If you look at the camera angle and go into, well, like this, I was going to do a bunch of pre-rendered angles, kind of like Resident Evil. And so you can see what that looked like rendered. I have it somewhere here like this, right? And so At the time I was a programmer, but at this time I didn't really know that much about 3D graphics, so I wanted to make a kind of Resident Evil style game where it was pre-rendered backgrounds and then characters just walk on top of it. And the idea was you would take this train into a city, and the game was a parody of Resident Evil, and it was called SCUM, Stuck in a City Full of Undead Monsters. And so this was the Lightrail station that I had made for that. Let's see if we can... Let's select everything, fix the wireframe issues, recalculate outside, material preview. Let's see if we can't go inside the train. So, all right, look at this. This is the inside of a train. It doesn't really look like a commuter rail. It looks like one of those like air trains that takes you to the airport or something, because there's not a lot of seating in here. But yeah, we're just Train Simulator 2020. Just look at that reflection, the outside. All right, what's next? Oh, so here's some more renders of that. So here is, look at those wheels. That look, geometry looks so stupid. I didn't know how to texture really yet, so there's like all this texture stretching on the rails. I started building out some suburbs and stuff. Now this texture I recognize immediately. It's from the castle tutorial, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, there we go. There's a bunch of old renders. What else we have? Sniper Scenery. Now this, I went to an arcade. Yeah, it's this game, Gunblade. So this is like a light gun game for arcades where the camera is basically on rails. You don't control the camera, but you just shoot a bunch of bad guys. And again, in a similar vein, I didn't really know how to program 3D at the time, but I could make a, basic animation like this of a camera flying around a city. So I wanted to recreate it at home, and I didn't have MAME at the time. So let's take a look at this. So here is my beautiful little city. We got Luigi's Pizza. We got some awkward-looking lamp posts. This would probably be a lot more fun with the texture, so we'll look at that in a second. Let's look at the animation. Does it... Okay, the camera's working. So yeah, it would have been like trying to spawn enemies as sprites while the camera just kind of flies around. That animation though. So I think, let's see, render. Let's open this with OrphanView because we can preview a little bit better. All right, you ready for this magic? I like how this like road segment doesn't even fit in with everything else. What is this? It looks like some meta balls, and then we jump back over here. I guess I must have like used a temporary directory and like tried to do some other animation and like overwrote some frames or something. Mr. Bubble Cleaners. Luigi's Pizza. Look at that awful pizza texture. I'm pretty sure I drew that in MSPaint. I'm pretty sure I drew both of these in MSPaint, actually. I definitely, it took me a while to get into Photoshop, so I bet most of these textures were in MSPaint. But yeah, there you go. I was trying to build a city. What else we got? Test. And those are just cubes. Ah, yeah, textures. So here is my texture folder. This Atari texture was the very first texture I ever got working. I remember thinking that texturing in Blender would be super hard and confusing, which is something that a lot of beginners actually believe. And it's actually very easy to do UV texturing and stuff. But this Atari TV was the very first time I got a texture working, and I remember being like, whoa, mind blown. And that really gave me a lot of confidence to keep trying to do stuff. I like how it's black cat fur. Clearly orange. I don't remember making a cat. This must have been for that wildcat thing for the school. I guess I gave up on it. It was probably too hard. My Coke texture has bubbles that are just dots in MS Paint. Oh god, look at this. This is hideous. So I took this guy's face from Google Images, and then I manually tried to unwrap it into a texture because I had no idea what I was doing. Oh, that is hideous. Look at, oh, I didn't even know how to blend edges. Like, this wouldn't even have been that terrible of an unwrap if I knew how to use Photoshop, but with these hard edges and a million chins, oh no. That is pretty rough and embarrassing. Yeah, so we have some, this was, I think, also from the Castle tutorial. Golden crap. That is, again, I think this was part of the pirate ship. I was like modeling some, now, why did I make my own flag texture? I couldn't have found a flag on Google Images. That's okay. Oh, ground cover. Look at that. That's literally the spray paint tool in MS Paint. Oh no. And then the most pathetic looking grass texture ever. Oh, here's the letter that the pen was writing. Okay, so it's pretty hard to read. Let's see. Dear, can we zoom in on this? Dear Kaylee? Dear Kaylee? I don't know anyone named Kaylee or Katie, so okay. Bob is a dinosaur. He gives wedgies. You should read Dilbert. Okay, I guess I was reading Dilbert at the time. So this is an I. They are very colorful. I like castles nowadays. The end. Have a nice day. Sincerely, Bob. Okay. What does this middle one say? I hope it's not something embarrassing, like someone on YouTube is going to read this and figure out what I wrote, and it's going to be terrible. I am baking. Well, that looks like, okay, I'm looking at something. Okay, and they are very colorful. So I'm looking at, oh, okay. Yep. Okay, that's Toypedos. So, there were these, like, I used to go swimming a lot when I was younger, and there were like these silicone torpedoes called Toypedos that are super fun to play with. And so I guess I had a couple of them on my desk or whatever. So, Dear Katie, Bob is a dinosaur. He gives wedgies. You should read Dilbert. I am looking at Toypedos. They are very colorful. I like castles nowadays. The end. Oh, you know what? That's probably coasters, because I just started writing roller coasters. Have a nice day. So I guess I'm just writing nonsense for my letter, but anyways, what else we got? Sewer. Mr. Bubble Cleaners. Look at this high quality texture from MS Paint. Red brick, look at that. Who needs the Blender Guru neon sign tutorial when you have MS Paint? Yeah, so just here's a bunch of dumb textures that I made back in the day when I was absolutely terrible at art. We already looked at the train. This is actually the same thing as the SCUM folder. This was a download. Any of these .tar ones are like things I downloaded from the internet, so it's not my work. Now, Turjah was another, so we were talking about Pocket PCs, right? Turjah Pocket PC was a game I really liked for the Pocket PC. It was a really addicting shoot 'em up or a shmup that you use like the stylus to control a ship and then one of the buttons to fire, and you had like a bomb button as well. And it was really super addicting. Unfortunately, it was only for Pocket PC. So I wanted to try to make it for a desktop computer. And again, I was a programmer. I knew how to do sprite work. So here is my version of the ship. How close does it look to theirs? So the ship looked like that. Okay, I was definitely inspired by whatever ship this was. Oh, look, we could download it. but I don't think it works on emulator, but we could try. But anyways, yeah, so there is my questionably looking spaceship that I rendered out to sprites, and now I do have all of the sprites that I did over here. So here was like the rotating asteroid I rendered in Blender. I turned it into sprites for a game engine. And then here's our spaceship, and you can see it's tilted to the left or the right. This is when I was trying to do the graphics in MSPaint before I decided to switch to Blender. Here's like a little spiky bomb thing, cannon upgrades, high-tech explosions. These were the bullets, I think, that I ended up going with when you shoot. And unfortunately, if you guys want, I can try to get this game running. I know it's going to take a lot of work, so I'm probably not going to do it anytime soon. But if you want, I probably can get it running. But yeah, so that's... Oh, here's some screenshots of the game. Get that money. There's like some enemies. that one fireball gif that is like universally used everywhere when somebody wants to show an explosion. But yeah, so there was that. What else we got? Windows Media Player skins. So back in the day, everything had to look super terrible. Let's try to fix our normals. And so, whoa, that looks pretty bad. Oh, you know what I was doing? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So I every like application back in the Windows XP day had like some gaudy, awful looking, theme, and I was trying to make my own because back in those days it was pretty common to try to make, custom skins for things. What am I doing? I want to make this. No, let's just make this brighter. And so yeah, I was going to try to make a Windows Media Player skin using Blender. And the reason why this was probably honestly like that, because Blender back in the day, the background wouldn't affect the global lighting like it does now. And you would use a color to key out for transparency. So I just made it bright green. So the background would be green. It would key out for transparency, but then it wouldn't actually affect the surface like it does these days. So that's what that is. XMAS. Now this one I'm really proud of. Let's open this up. This was, I don't remember what date, but I made a Christmas card, and this was like one of the first times I really tried doing characters. I even used a particle system for his clothing. So here's what my mesh work looked like. It looks pretty hilarious. Let's go into... Why is everything so dark all the time? Yeah, it's just a bunch of shapes stuck together. I didn't really know how to make things out of continuous meshes yet. And then here's the big man himself. I bet I used that same hideous face texture. But yeah, let's take a look at that. There we go. Yeah, look at that's definitely that same guy's face. With a particle system for the fluffy cotton or whatever. And I remember I was so proud. I made this one reindeer look at the camera where the rest are looking forwards. I thought that was like the coolest thing. But yeah, this was Christmas cards for my family one year. We sent out this, which admittedly at the time was pretty cool because nobody was doing stuff like that. Now, yearbook game. This is an interesting one. So let's look at Cedric Basic Joined. Yeah, look at this hideous looking knight. So our high school mascot was the Knights. And so, yeah, look at that knight. Wow, so good. Much knight. So my school was pretty good at technology, and so we had a video editing team, and in our yearbooks we would put a CD, the jacket of the yearbook, with like videos and stuff around the school, like just so we could play it on our computers and like have video memories of that year. And so I was learning game development, and I wanted to put a game on the CD. I thought, how cool would it be if we had like a game theme to our high school? And so I was friends with one of the guys on the yearbook team, and he was like, well, if you make the game, I can get it on there for you. So I wanted to make a Mario Kart clone. And so I came up with Night Kart. Now, our This will probably tell you exactly where I grew up if you do any Googling, but we were the Knights. Our biggest rival were the, I guess, Bobcats, I think. There was the Dons, and then there was the Vikings, and I forget which schools these all are now. I'm pretty sure I know which these two are. I forget who the Vikings were, but we were the Knights, and so I was super proud of this. I reused that same face texture again. Oh, so that's what the cat textures were for. It was for this thing. Oh, that looks hideous. I actually do have some animations I did of a mascot cat much later, and they came out much better than this hideous freak. You can tell I used like the same chest as the knight for like all of these. I'm actually surprised, like the Viking, like the beard and the hair and the hat, like actually doesn't look too bad for like a pathetic beginner's render. Yeah. These super broad shoulders because they're all based on a suit of armor. I think I did the knight first. And you know, when he's standing up, he actually looks pretty terrible, but in a go-kart, it doesn't look too bad. But yeah, so my idea for this was to render each one at like, I don't know, 36 different angles. So you could rotate it and just make like an overhead fixed perspective kart racer. Oh yeah, 2003 to 2004. So this was like kind of towards the end of high school. I was starting to get a little bit better at Blender. A little bit. But yeah, that's what Kart Maps was. Wow, so we have a bunch of stuff still to go through. We're like halfway through everything. So I just want to show a couple more things, and then if you guys want, leave a comment below if you want to see more of my ancient cringe-worthy work. But my castle tutorial. Now this one is interesting because there's a little bit of history here. Here is my castle, and here is my render. And this was the resolution I rendered at, and I remember this took a while to render back in the day on my ancient Pentium 3 computer or whatever it was. But this is actually one of the first kind of viral Blender tutorials. And I found it here. So let's see, 2000, July 19th, 2000, I guess, when this tutorial was made. So I started learning Blender in like 2000 and 2001, and this was one of the first ever tutorials that I followed. So this is what they made, and as you can see, I didn't follow directions very well because mine looks pretty different. But that's where all of the textures come from. Where is the thing? From this tutorial. So this could be a potentially interesting video. Let me know if you want to see this. Following like my first ever Blender tutorial again. I could follow it in the version of Blender it was meant to be followed in. I could follow it in Blender 1.0, which was even before this tutorial. I could follow it in modern Blender 2.8 or 2.9 probably. So that could be an interesting thing, going over the first ever Blender tutorial and seeing how Blender's changed, seeing which of these, like this advice and keyboard shortcuts no longer work, and seeing how to adapt it. I think that'd be a pretty fun thing. And it says, the next step is to apply some nice materials. This is explained in detail, texturing a castle. So that didn't work. Can we switch this to texturing? Wait, tutorial. I want to change this word. Texturing a castle. Okay. What if I... Nice. Okay, can we do... texturing a castle. There we go. So yeah, so a lot of those textures in my texture folder, like the stone path, these roof tiles, the bricks, came from this tutorial. And I assume, yeah, so you could just, there's a download link. Look at these old shots of Blender. I love it so much. Did mine even end up using that texture? Where's mine? Yeah, I guess I did. I think their gate came out better. So yeah, so that could be a fun thing. Someone on Reddit, I think the other day was, yeah, here it is, saying, I remember the castle tutorial, and I was like, I still have my render, here it is. And I do. This was from decades ago. Does this have a date on it when I made it? 2002 is when I made this at 11:51 p.m. I've always been a night owl. I've always been the type of person to work late into the night. So this was probably like a school night or something. And I was so excited to be 3D rendering that, 11:51 p.m. I made this in 2002. Absolutely fascinating. That will about do it, I think, for now. I will show you guys these renders just to kind of cap off the video. But if you do want to see my old project files for these renders and more, because there's a lot of stuff that, this would be a 2 or 3 hour video if we actually went through everything in this folder. And that's not even all of it. I have another whole other Blender folder. This is the oldest stuff by far. But then I have some stuff that's from, if this is 2000 through 2004, I have another folder that's 2006 through 2010. At some point, when I got a new computer, I started making a new Blender folder. So that's where these ones come in. And then the new folder has some stuff. And I started getting better, but I was still pretty terrible. I have all my newer work, which I can cover in a future video of my most proud stuff, I guess we could say. So, anywho, let's look at some of these renders and see what else we got. So we already looked at the train. So my friend Ben in high school loved his bicycle, and I was getting into roller coasters, so I got No Limits coaster, and I made a roller coaster that just stays on the ground the whole time. And then I made a 3D model of a bike, and I photoshopped it on. So it's the idea is it's a very tame roller coaster that just simulates riding a bike in a circle. I was making fun of him, but so that was that. Okay, here's a render of this. I guess we kind of already saw that in the animation. My late cat, Casper, I made him scratching his scratching post. I guess this is the final one of this because I named it. There's that Dear Bob. I guess my idea was, you can't read this letter and there's going to be a weight on top of it. So if I write nonsense about Toypedos, it doesn't matter. So if you remember the Windows 3.1 game Ski Free, I recently picked up a Windows 3.1 computer that somebody was throwing away. And that was the first time I ever played Ski Free. And when I say recently, I mean, in 2000 or whatever. And so I thought the game was really fun, but I wanted to remake it. So I tried to remake it using Blender. And here was one of the renders from a cutscene. And then I had some renders of this guy for the actual 2D graphics of the game. I had a Logitech Wingman controller and tried to render it. This was interesting. So this was a 3D Studio Max iceberg render. And I'm not sure if this is actually my 3D Studio Max or if it's one that I pirated. But then I have an iceberg here. I actually don't even remember much about this. If this was an iceberg I downloaded, if this is somebody else's screenshot. I don't really remember. I feel like I modeled this one, but I don't remember installing. I do remember pirating Max, but I don't remember ever using it really because I already liked Blender. But yeah. So we looked at this. We looked at the castle. We looked at Santa. We looked at so the stadium was the first thing I was ever proud of. I didn't know how to save a render, so I would always just screenshot the Blender window. It's funny because I don't even like soccer or football, but I just thought it would be a fun challenge to make a stadium, and here we are. Win team. Is that instructing the team to win? I don't know. Let's see, we have Nike, Atari, PS2, probably Mountain Dew because I loved it back in the day. I like how the crowd is just a bunch of colored circles. HP. Oh, this one. Oh, there's a little bit easier to see here. This one just says soccer and Xbox. So that's a fun one. And then, of course, yeah, like I said, I loved Mountain Dew. I still do, but I did then also. And I tried to make a can of it. And there's the box art for that ski game. So, yeah, this is some of my oldest surviving work. I never delete anything. I keep stuff forever. And so I have a lot more stuff, just not necessarily saved renders of it. So if you want to see that, let me know, and we will do that. And now the final thing is, it's time for social media. So on Twitter, Peter Lobley says, I Legofied one of my photos. Can you tell what it is? Following this tutorial. And he linked my tutorial. Best viewed full screen on my website. Let's take a look full screen. And it looks like he did an excellent job following the tutorial. My only critique would be, because this part of the motorcycle looks kind of noisy, I probably would zoom in the texture so that more of the bike fills the frame, and then you get more details on the bike. That's just a hunch, but great job, Peter. And then down here he says, I plugged in a different Manx photo, and there's like some kind of, looks like offshore castle thing. But what I love about this, and I think I commented, is that it's so easy to switch photos. Like, once you have the nodes set up for this tutorial, you can just plug in a different photo and then instantly it'll change the scene. So it's a really fun thing once you have it set up. So good work. All right, and here we have Adventures in Blender. It says, this is awesome and makes me worry for this guy's state of mind with regard to self-inflicted pain. And he linked my Dire Straits Money for Nothing render. I mean, self-inflicted pain. I mean, in a way, yes, that took, I think that was 6 hours to model that. I had some Joe Rogan podcasts on in the background, and I just kind of got in the zone and modeled that. But you know what? Blender 1.0 is actually really fun to use. Like, it's not as nearly as bad as you would think it is. A lot of the older Blenders get a lot of hate, and you know, it looks like we didn't even use the 2.37, but it's not really that different. I mean, this is your buttons window, right? The only difference is it's laid out this way. Like in modern Blender, can we? Oh, they didn't have that feature yet. So let's split. So in modern Blender, it would look like this. Let's see, outliner. So outliner looks a little bit different. Split. This should be buttons window. And layout should be vertical, and the header should go to the top. So this is what, you know, it looked like for the longest time in Blender, even in 2.79, and it already was here. Let's see, we can zoom out on this so it makes a little more sense. You know, so this would have been like the cycles tab. There's the render button. This, you know, the sampling stuff, the resolution, the frame count, all of the stuff was there. This was timeline, right? In modern 2.79, the timeline was down here. So you could scrub through this. You had your viewport here. You had all your stuff here. Here's like the materials. Here's the object things, like you could put on what's it called? Modifiers and stuff like that. Like all of that was here in Blender. It was just laid out a little bit different. This looks a little bit weird. I don't know what's going on with this outliner. View. Show. Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah, so there. Like, all of it was there. The keyboard shortcuts, grab on X, scale, Shift X, just does on 2 axes, rotate, axis 90 or 45 or something. Like, all the keyboard shortcuts were there. Go into tab, grab, you know, like, there's loop cuts. Why can't I apply that? Okay, that might be... Oh, there we go. No problem. But yeah, so like, Blender has been good for a long time. And even though 2.8 is objectively superior, if you can use Blender, these old versions aren't that bad. I think they were just intimidating, so they got a lot of hate. But realistically, yeah, Blender 2.8 has like a lot of UI sugar added to it, so it looks better, and it has like some quality of life things added to it. But fundamentally, under the hood, if you knew how to use Blender and you were good at Blender, these old versions aren't bad. I really defend these old versions because I grew up with them and I know how to use them, but all of those skills transferred right into 2.8, and I think it would work in reverse also. If you get really good at 2.8 and you learn all the keyboard shortcuts, it wouldn't be too hard to adjust to an older version of Blender. There would be things you would miss, for sure, but I don't think these were that bad. And so, anyways, you know, yeah, it was a little bit time consuming to do this render in Blender 1.0, but so much of my skill and muscle memory just translated back into the software that I was able to do this relatively comfortable. It wasn't that painful. It was actually kind of exciting and felt fresh because, you know, I work in Blender all the time and I'm used to all the new modern features, and so this was kind of like an extra challenge. It was almost like a game in a way to see how far I could push myself and push the software. So I'm really proud of this, and you know. And so then Pierre Schiller says, "Actually, Stuff I Built Greg is a freaking genius." Aw, thank you. And he beat us in our own game. Not sure if you're in the game of playing with old versions of Blender, but if you are, thank you. And so yeah. So anyways. Here's my fundraiser if you want to contribute so that I could get an awesome Pocket PC and play with Blender Mobile, super ultra rare version. Link will be in the description. And I mentioned this last time, but I am looking for work. So if you have anything that you need 3D modeled, or in some cases animated, like I did this walk cycle of a cat, or I guess it's more of a run cycle of a cat, but I can do some basic animation and I can 3D model pretty much anything you ask me to. So if the price is right, I would love to work with you. It just says freelance, so I have to plug that. And yeah, remember to like, comment, subscribe, share this with a friend, ring the notification bell, all of that YouTube shenanigans. You know what to do. I appreciate all of the comments. I appreciate the 4K. This is the 4K celebration, 4,096 subscribers. Absolutely unreal. I'm going to start 2 new series coming. I'm going to render some classic movie props. So I'm going to do like the ooze canister from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm going to do the Fryo chamber, like Barbasol can from Jurassic Park, and others. I think it'd be really fun to do a study on Hollywood props, especially for my favorite kind of movies, and then try to recreate them in Blender. So that is going to be coming soon. Of course, I will be playing with some more older Blender stuff. I have some ideas for that. I'll let you guys discover that when I publish it. But yeah, so subscribe, ring the bell so you can see all that cool stuff when it comes out. And ta-ta for now.